Hello and welcome to our webinar, Strategic Action Plan Success Stories Part 1. My name is BC Echohawk and I'm a Communications Coordinator with the Native Connections TTA Center. On behalf of the Native Connections team and Contracting Officer Representatives Maureen Madison and Jan Dunbar Cooper, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. In a few moments we'll start our presentation, but first I'd like to review a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded and a replay will be available in the future. Because we are recording, all phone lines will be muted to minimize outside noise. Today's PowerPoint is available for download on the lower right side of the screen. Please don't hesitate to use the chat box for questions throughout the session, and if you'd like, we'd love to have you enter your name and program in the chat box. Opening us up in a good way today is Mary Horsechief with the Cherokee Nation's Native Connections program. We appreciate her doing that for us. Mary?
Hello. I'm going to say this prayer that was given to me, and it's about returning to God's original purpose for our creation and walk on this earth. And this is the Cherokee Going to Water prayer. So facing east, we honor all the people of the world. Facing east, we honor the brown people or the red people of the world, according to their original symbolic color. So every brown creation that ever was, every brown creation that is present now, and every brown creation that will be in the future. Then we look to the north, and we honor all the blue vein people, all the blue vein people that ever were, all the blue vein people right now, and that ever will be. Then we look to the west, and we honor all the yellow people, all the yellow colored people that ever were, all of them right now, and that ever will be. And then finally we look to the south and we honor all the black people, all the black people that ever were, all of them right now, down to the last child that will ever be. Then we think about the earth plane, all of creation, from the water down in the swamps. We take all that's good, all of the water and the earth plane and the sky plane, all the way up to the stars, all of creation, out into the universe. And we put all of that together and we pray to the Creator, asking for direction to guide our thoughts, words, and actions for today. So Creator, I ask you that you guide our thoughts, words, and actions for today. Help us to be kind to one another. Help us to be strong, find the strength that we need to do your good work, and lead us in your way. Thank you. Amen.
Sir. Come on, sir.
Thank you, Mary. Sarah?
Turned off. Sorry. New Year. This is part one of a two-part discussion that will help us better understand the journey of strategic action plan development as it's done for the Native Connections program. In spite of the pandemic, the Native Connections program is in progress and going strong in tribal communities across the nation. And this webinar will allow us to take a peek behind the curtain to see how things are going in some tribal communities. Shabri?
Thank you, Sarah. Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast. I'd like to just introduce myself for a second and let you know that I am Shabri Perico. I'm a Native Connections Grantee Technical Assistant, and I'm calling you today from Seattle, Washington. I am Chiricahua, Fort Sill Apache, and I hold a degree in Native American Studies from the University of Oklahoma. And I just wanted to express my excitement for our grantee presenters today and all of the wonderful experience and knowledge that they're bringing for strategic action planning and all of the wonderful stories that they're going to share about their experiences over the course of their development and knowledge for whether they're in the beginning of their development of their strategic action plans, in the middle, or maybe they're new to the project or towards the end. So they are going to bring a lot of wonderful tips and tricks, and you're going to be able to ask questions throughout this process. So feel free to use the chat box, and we will be able to guide you through this learning process today with us. And we're hoping that this is going to be an interactive experience. So raise your hand and use the chat box, and we'll be able to definitely have an interactive learning experience today. So thank you for joining us, and we're excited to have you.
Thanks, Shabri. So the panelists will discuss a number of different topics. They will help us understand a little bit about how they use the CSA or the CRM, that's the Community System Analysis, or the Community Readiness Assessment to strengthen their strategic action plan. They'll talk about how they've aligned cultural activities to meet their CRM scores. They'll talk about the tracking impact of their strategic action plan goals and activities. And they'll engage tribal youth and the community in SAP development, sharing those stories, as well as some pandemic-related adjustments to the strategic action plan that we've all had to make over the past year. I want to introduce you, we're going to introduce you to the panel. We've got five lovely ladies here, and we'll introduce them, and I'm going to introduce some, and then Shabri's going to introduce others. First up is, well, before we introduce the panel, I want to also add that we're joined by our intern, Sophia Porsche, who will be helping us capture your questions and comments from the chat box that you see on your screen as we move through our panel discussion. Also, we're joined by the supporting GTAs for our panelists, who I want to thank for helping us find this amazing panel of wise women to share their experience with us today. Now to our panelists. First up is Melanie Stevens, Youth Support Services Coordinator for the Native Connections Program at the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation. She's focused on the traditional plants of the Chehalis tribe and how they can be used to keep people healthy. By working in the garden and with the plants in the class, the youth and community are participating in healthy activities and helping their families at the same time. Then we have Helena Darrow. She's the program manager for the Seattle Indian Health Board's Native Connections program. Helena says that she and her team have had the opportunity to meet with her GTA in person, and that experience helped them greatly. Staff changes have also led to a need to update their SAP and revise their goals into strong, SMART goals, and this made an impact on their efforts. Shabri?
All right, and we're also joined by Amber Hansen, who is a Suicide Prevention Program Manager of the Skokomish Native Connections Project. And during the past year, their team has really focused on working with youth virtually. For some in-person work with the youth, they're really working with tutors to set aside time to work on self-care, mental health, and implement a suicide prevention skills curriculum. They're holding spots for conferences, whether those are in-person or virtual. And a new exciting program activity will be youth digital stories that they're developing. We're also joined today by Mary Horsechief, who was also our gracious opener today on this Native Connections webinar. And Mary Horsechief is the Cherokee Nation Native Connections Program Director. And for their strategic action planning, they've really made it a goal to coordinate and partner with existing community coalitions and traditional communities and schools, as well as other service providers to support youth and planning to get their staff and volunteers certified in QPR and mental health first aid trainers. And lastly, but not least, we're joined by Lisa Schumann, who's with Lac de Flambeau. She's the director for their Native Connections Suicide Prevention Program, and for their strategic action planning goals, they're really working with schools and youth at the center, and they really collaborate with many different coalitions in the community. They've had mid-grant community readiness assessment meetings with their tribal council, who's really been a part of letting the people and community stand with the program activities. They've had some really good content to share with council and the community, and there have been some staff changes over the last year. So they're really looking forward to finishing out their final project year of the grant and reapplying for funding in the future.
All right, so many of you might recognize this slide on Native Connections approach. It's a cyclical pathway for going through the entire Native Connections approach to developing your program. We've come a long way in the SAP journey, and some of you are on the very front end of that journey, and some of you are seasoned practitioners. So just wanted to do a real quick run through. When you enter into this Native Connections approach, you're coming in and beginning to gather local data, and we've created some tools for you to use, and our panelists are going to be discussing this in just a moment. You've got tools like the Community System Analysis, the CSA, that helps you collect data on local partnership or possible partners in your community. And then you have the Community Readiness Assessment or the Community Readiness Manual that helps you collect local data to get your sense of the hearts and minds of where the people are. And you're doing this so that you can calibrate your strategic action plan goals and objectives and activities to meet the frequency of that community's level of readiness. Then we move on, we develop a very strong, smart goals and objectives and activities and people and budgets and all of that, and wrap that into our strategic action plan. And then we move forward into implementation of that strategic action plan. And from there, we get into ways to measure where we've been, how far we got, and making any adjustments and adaptations from there. Now, our panelists are on every part of the spectrum. We have some very seasoned practitioners in seasoned programs that have been operational for many years. We have newbies that have come on board into a program that's been operating for quite a while, and everything in between. So we're going to have a really good time with this conversation, and please go ahead and put your questions for any of the presenters in the chat box, and Sophia will be gathering those up. I'm now going to turn it over to my partner, Shabri.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Great. So as part of the Native Connections approach, I'm going to move back a slide just a second to revisit. So as part of the Native Connections approach, in the right quadrant over here in this gold one, we have the community systems analysis. So we start here with identifying some organizations and departments. We have programs and services here and traditional practices and customs. In this quadrant, the community systems analysis is a tool that's used to really identify existing strengths in the community. So when we move into this part of the panel discussion, we're going to open up to our grantee presenters to discuss this topic of the community systems analysis and/or the community readiness model assessment, which is in the quadrant that's to the left of the community systems analysis, and how those tools were used to really strengthen and develop their strategic action planning. So these are tools that the Training and Technical Assistance Center provides grantees to help programs develop their SAP. So thinking about the CSA or the Community Readiness Model Assessment, I'd like to ask grantees if you could give us a sense of how any of these tools, among other things that you may use when you're beginning to plan and develop your strategic action plan, how did you use these tools to strengthen and begin developing your strategic action plan? So panelists, I'd like you to just think about that and discuss and respond to that question first. And I'd like to first pose this question to our first grantee presenter, which is Melanie.
Thank you, Shabri. I came into our grant in the 4th year, and I used the CRM to be able to keep me up to date and get my feet running when I hit the floor. And we looked at our strengths and weaknesses and found 2 areas that we wanted to focus on for our grant in our SAP, which was C for leadership and E for community knowledge. And what we did is we did a community survey and then brought that information back and looked at it to find out where our strengths and weaknesses were and build on it from that. We wanted to bring more, get more from our leadership, from our business committee, and also to connect with all of the departments within the program. And I'd like to pass it on now to Helena.
Thank you, Melanie. So kind of thinking about our community systems analysis, or CSA, when the Municipality and Health Board's Native Connections program was working on our staff development, we really pulled on our CSA, we really pulled from our strengths and strong health connections and education connections as a health center in an urban area. And then we also tried to focus on 2 of our lower CRM scores, dimensions F and E, when developing our SAP to directly inform our efforts to start like a pediatric clinic outreach table to distribute resources that focus on youth mental health, and then also providing more information on suicide prevention to our community with a continuation of our community question, persuade, refer, or QPR training. And I'd like to pass it off to Amber.
Hey, thank you for that, Helena. One of the ways that we use the community readiness assessment, instead of just doing it 2 times or even 3 times throughout the grant, we decided to do this annually. And the reason we wanted to do that was to really just make sure that our programming was on track and just maybe see areas that we were doing well in. And if there was areas that maybe our numbers weren't increasing, we wanted to really focus on those. So there's been times where we really needed to increase the education, we increased trainings, and then other programs and activities that our youth were participating in. And the CSA was really helpful in the very beginning when we were doing our different programming to really plug in those different departments that we were working with. So later on throughout the grant, when we were, trying to decide new activities to move forward, we reached out to those departments that really supported us and just used them for our idea sharing and feedback and moving forward with our grant. They were really helpful in planning our year 5, which was a big transition. So now I'd like to pass it on to Mary.
Well, we've always had, at the Cherokee Nation, we have a pretty large geographical area to cover. And like a lot of large tribes, we've always had an issue trying to implement things, without really just having to do a shotgun approach. And so what we found out from our community readiness model was that pretty much wherever we surveyed, that our scores were pretty low when it came to suicide prevention resources. And but we had a lot of strengths too. So what we ended up doing was, as far as our strategic action plan was, we did want to focus on a small area, but we also wanted to provide training and services to the larger areas too. So we did take a look at a smaller community, more traditional community called Chewy, and provided training and cultural activities in that one area, as well as a lot of information and resources with their local activities. But we also provided, wanted to provide question, persuade, and refer training, QPR training, as well as mental health first aid training. We did Native Hope at the Sequoia High School that the Cherokee Nation runs. We also provided lifelines at some schools, which is a Hazelden suicide prevention training that's really good, as well as cultural activities in a few other areas. So what we ended up doing was we had, or what we really felt like was our strength was our community coalitions. So we utilized them. We couldn't do anything without them. I mean, they're our connection to the community, and they're the ones that know their community the best, and they're our partners. So that's pretty much how we used our community readiness to develop our SAP. And so I'm going to pass that back to Mel. No, we're going to Lisa.
Bonjour. With RCS, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Lisa. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. When we use our CSA, we actually just finished up some this past month, and we did 12 interviews with people throughout the community, but it helps us plan our activities for the year too. We get our council involved at the meeting, and then they tell us, you know, can you try this, or have you tried this? So it's really good to get the community involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. That was a really good panel response. Do we have any questions for our panel? Sophia?
Any questions just yet?
Okay, hearing none, then we will move forward. Thank you.
Hey, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely,
This is Mary. Absolutely. I actually, when Amber was talking, I really appreciated what she was saying about getting input from the people. You know, that community readiness model really has some great stuff in there. It shows you exactly how to engage the community when you're developing, taking the data that you found and using it to help develop your SAP, your strategic action plan. And that feedback, I mean, you know, you can do it a million different ways. I mean, you can just have a conversation with the community, or, you know, you can set up a PowerPoint and go over all the information that you collected, and then, you know, get people's input that way and on what they think would work as far as addressing what you found. So, I mean, that's something I don't think that we probably cover enough, but that little segue in there is probably the most important, I really feel like, as far as getting buy-in from the community. And I really liked how Amber talked about it like that.
I do too. So it looks like Sophia says we have a question from Leon Mashik. Do you find the CSA template easy to use? Maybe if you don't, what suggestions would you make? And this is open to any of our panelists.
I think it's easy to use. It has everything right there for you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Helena. Let's see, kind of jumping off Kit's response to Leona's question. To be honest, the CSA template is not maybe my most favorite template to use. However, I do find it helpful at the end of the day when we move into working on our CRM and then our SAP development. So it does have its helpful points.
Thank you. And the CSA template is absolutely adaptable for anyone who can hear this. It's just to get you started. This is your tool. We've just started it, so you can take that template and adjust it, make it larger, smaller, add different columns to it. It's for you to make according to what your needs are. Leona says we didn't find the CSA template easy to use, but we adapted and revised it to add what we needed and take out what we didn't. And that's exactly what it's there for. Thank you. That was Kit on Steel, sorry. And Marvin saying, keep in mind that the template has been updated recently. Yes, it has. So we're listening to you. And if you have any more advice on what you'd like to have added to it, feel free to share that with us, with your GTA, and that'll get back to us and we'll make those updates. How can we get an updated template? That I'm going to turn that over to your GTA. They will get that to you, Leona.
Hi, this is Shabri. I am a GTA and I'm happy to upload, excuse me, I'm happy to upload to this webinar actually the new updated CSA workbook. And it's really similar to the old workbook that is in Excel. And this document is actually going to be in a Word document. And aesthetically, it looks very similar. The colors are very similar. It still has the same types of categories for the resources that you're going to identify. But some of those later sheets that were in the Excel workbook that have you basically identify the activities and kind of build those later sections out, those were revised a bit. And so I'll drop it in this webinar for you to download and review, and you can definitely go through that with your grantee technical assistant and walk through how you can develop this on your own and with your staff and see how you can use the old file in collaboration with this new file and make it work definitely for your project now. So it's adaptable and it's definitely simplified a little bit with this new version based on the way that the Native Connections project has evolved since the beginning of this grant project back 7 years ago or so. So we hope that it's a little bit more useful and a little bit more simplified for you, and we look forward to working with you individually for each of your grant projects in the future with this new file. So I can upload it for you here.
Thank you, Shabri. Okay, so Shabri's going to move that up into the download file for us today. And she is awesome, Kit. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to aligning cultural activities with readiness. So panelists, we know that youth are drawn to the culture and traditions of their ancestors. Can you tell us how you found ways to strategies to weave in cultural activities into your SAP and match them to the readiness level of the youth and community? And I'm going to open that up first for Melanie.
Thank you, Sarah. With our Native Connections grant, we increased our community awareness for bringing some of our activities we did was to present newsletters to the community with prevention information, online resources, and continued the efforts throughout our different hubs that our tribal community uses. We have also recently been joined with our culture and heritage program, so we are able to send kits home during the pandemic to reach out to the community, and we have youth classes because we have a program. Our school program is having our kids come here to our center, and we're able to work with the kids on a daily basis. And then our Fridays are designed to have fun Fridays, where we have special cultural activities that we do with them, whether it be cedar weaving, drum making, rattles, and that type of thing. And I'd like to pass this over to Helena now.
Thank you, Melanie. So thinking about what our Native Connections project has done with our activities, we played to our strengths in our CRM this past summer, where we had a really successful virtual youth gathering of Native Americans. And that really lined up with two of our CRM dimensions. And then most of our other activities are culturally centered. For example, we create social media campaigns and some online challenges, such as our Movement is Medicine, mental and physical health and wellness videos, and then our Indigenous Spirit Week for youth, which is super fun. And I'd like to pass this off to Amber.
That was awesome. Thank you, Helena. One of the big things we did was we really paid attention to our community readiness assessment responses that we had, because each year we did 8 people, sometimes 9, and one of the common trends year to year was that people in the community might not have even known our program existed. And then if they did know that it existed, they didn't really know who was a part of the program, who they could contact. They didn't know who our behavioral health team was. And a lot of the youth, you know, with me working out in the community, really enjoyed a lot of the activities that connected them back to their culture. So we came up with it was a 2-day event. The first day we got with our behavioral health team, and we taught them how to make a drum from beginning to end. And then the second day, that team was paired up with the youth, and they made a drum with them. We created this event so that our youth and our behavioral health team were able to work together and have like open conversation back and forth. And they were really able to get to know our team without it kind of being in an office setting. And this allowed them to understand the program a little bit more, and just start to see that suicide prevention was more than education. It was also about culture. And then we had our suicide talking circle, where we also brought our behavioral health team in. And while we had them there, we also invited other people in from the community. We had some people come in and do traditional storytelling. We did do drum group. We did stick game, which is a traditional Native American gambling game for those that may not have played it. And we just really focused on building awareness and relationships, not only with our behavioral health staff, but also with elders and those in our community that were very knowledgeable. And now I'd like to pass it on to Mary.
Lost Mary Horse Chief, are you there?
Sorry, I was muted. I was really talking to you.
No worries.
I was saying what we've done over the years is that we would incorporate language and storytelling with our activities. There's all sorts of ways to do that. We've put signs down that have words, language that are pertinent to the activity. We have people that are teaching that actually are language teachers, and they incorporate words with the activity too. So it kind of helps people to be in a comfortable situation where they can actually practice it. But also what we're doing with each one of these activities is we're creating a community within that activity too. So it provides that sense of community, which is so important with prevention. I've done all sorts of things, like within an activity, almost doing a QPR within, just to get people comfortable with the idea. It depends on who the participants are, but to get comfortable with talking about suicide. We also provide life resource kits, which are bags that have lots of information in them, including the lifeline magnets, that you can put on your fridge. There's all sorts of ways to incorporate the information within the activities, but I think the main thing is that, like for instance with the storytelling and stuff, is that we help people, get that sense of well-being and how important it is, even in a pandemic, just to be outside, to be around people with a common goal, helps with that sense of well-being also. And I'm going to pass that on to Lisa.
Thank you, Mary. With our cultural activities, we did a lot of talking circles with the kids at the schools and our youth center. And during the talking circles, we'd have them ask questions, and then they would get to pick from some of our goodies that we had at the event. We did a cultural camp one year. I think that was just before I came in my first year. We do family circles, which is like an AODA parenting class. It's 18 weeks, and we do a lot of events with the kids there. But just doing the talking circles. This year, we're handing out cultural kits with our information to the kids at the school too. That's it.
Well, we do have a question, but they're asking about successful virtual events during the pandemic. Andrea, we're going to get to that in one of the sections coming up. Do we have any other questions for our panelists about aligning cultural activities with readiness? Okay, if it comes up, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat box, and we'll be coming back around. I'm going to turn this over to Shabri.
All right, thanks, Sarah, and thanks, everyone. I really enjoy listening to how you align the cultural activities with your community readiness. I think it's so important to be able to address the level of readiness of your community and be able to determine which activities are that you feel that you're able to identify are appropriate, and how you're able to move those forward over time as your readiness levels increase over time. So I'm really glad that we were able to hear those examples, and I hope everyone in the audience is able to take some nuggets away from that as well. All right, so when it comes to your strategic action planning, we definitely want to hear how you're able to kind of track the impact that you're making. So we know that measuring the success of your activities is really important, and how you're able to describe moving the needle forward of these prevention efforts over the years, and how you're reaching those annual goals, and you're able to track that within your strategic action plan. So what are some of the ways that you're able to describe the impact that the activities or the activity that you're doing towards each of your strategic action plan goals and the impact in the community? And are you able to describe a little bit for our audience some of those ways that you track those efforts and how you share that information? either with the community, with your staff, maybe that's with leadership, maybe that's with SAMHSA. So I'm going to pass this over to Melanie and see if you're able to illuminate us a little bit on how you track the impact of your strategic action plan.
Thank you, Shabri. For us, we track many different ways, and we use registration sheets at our events. When people come in, they sign in. We have sign-in sheets. The registration is if we're going to have an activity, who's coming, where they're coming from, how many are going to be in the group. Sign-in sheets, the days of the activities. We also had somebody design 2 QR codes for us, and the QR codes will take them to our webpage that gives them access to any kind of information that they need as far as resources within the community and outside of the community. And also one of our QR codes goes directly to the 741-741 texting message, and we can go in and actually track how many people have accessed those QR codes. We also do monthly outreach to the community where I provide the teas or salves or syrups, and people will come in and sign in and write down the different things that they need. So that's a way to keep track of our numbers for the people coming in. And then also finding and building off of curriculum, designing it so that it works best for our community is some of the ways that we've tracked the impact for our goals and objectives for this last couple of years that I've been working on the Native Connections grant. And I will pass it over to Helena.
Wow, thank you, Melanie. That was awesome. When the Seattle Museum Health Park Project thinks about tracking how the impact of our SAP, we kind of generally track our activities progress through like event attendance, similar to Melanie, sign-in sheets and such. We also do surveys as well for some of our events, like we do a QPR post survey. And then we also track some of our qualitative responses that help better inform our activities and then create a higher level of prevention activities as we move forward. And then kind of just overall, tracking really helps us identify gaps in our programming and activities, and it really tells a broader story about our prevention efforts. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Amber.
Great, thank you, Helena. Like the other two ladies, we definitely used a lot of our sign-in sheets from our events that kind of just, help us gauge what was attracting the community and which ones the youth were really participating in. Another piece that really helped us at our suicide talking circles that we were hosting bi-weekly, we started handing out surveys that asked different questions for the youth and the adults that would attend, asking, how did you hear about this event? What other topics would you like to be covered in the future? Will you come again? And for a couple months, we kind of just kept consistently reviewing these and just seeing what types of responses we were getting. Another helpful tool, our program here, we created a Facebook page, and I have found that super useful, especially now that a lot of what we're doing has gone virtual. We post a lot of different, like any of the events that we're doing, any of the trainings, just random helpful education, resources. And the great thing when you have a Facebook page, it actually will track and it'll tell you how many people are interacting with your post, how many people have shared it. And I've just found that really useful because it kind of helps us see, even virtually, what is attracting people and what can get their attention. And those are the big things that we've found useful. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mary.
So we, from the in the beginning, I told you about our community coalitions, and so we, as at the tribe, we can't actually have our own Facebook page for my grant, but our community coalitions can. And so what we do is we feed them information that they put on their own Facebook pages. And of course, we've done sign-in sheets and the pre-post surveys for the activities and the trainings. We have done some QR codes at times during some of these trainings. We did one with our Native Hope training for the kids at Sequoia High School. And we also track some other numbers, of course, for the larger picture of we do look at deaths and suicide ideations for the tribe and for our clinics. We do support some other really hands-on. We have quite a few clinics, and each of them have their own behavioral health staff. So, but we also have a couple of programs where they follow up with people that have exhibited suicide ideations or have checked the box, at a survey at one of the clinics. So this is very important as far as keeping people from dropping through the cracks. And so we support these ladies that go out, and actually before the pandemic, they were going house to house. And now they're doing it completely by phone. But we support these ladies, and we keep track of those numbers as well. So, there's all sorts of data out there. Don't be afraid to get creative and come up with your own questions to ask people. That's something that I've learned over the years, that you don't have to have a doctorate to do that. It helps to have a doctorate with you, by all means. And we did learn a little ways back too that it really helps to have an evaluator with you to help you with these ideas. But you guys and the people you work with are the experts in those communities. So don't ever forget that. What really helped us to, like I said, was to with this grant we were able to hire some consultants that help us with all of our grants. So that's really helped with our evaluation. And I'm gonna hand that back to Melanie.
Lisa, do you have anything to add?
We do our sign-in sheet surveys. We have a Facebook page, so we get information from there, and we have an e-news that goes out to everyone on Fridays, so we have that kind of information to collect. And I have a awesome evaluator that gets to do all the analyzing of all this stuff, so the ones that have evaluators are lucky. I know I am. That's it.
Thank you. Wonderful. Sarah, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Shabri. Okay, I think we're moving on. This is a great conversation so far, guys. So we know that the Native Connections approach really wants us to get the community involved and youth involved. So how did you guys engage tribal youth and community in SAP development in your community? Are they involved in implementation as well? And what ways have been useful for engaging the community and getting their input? I will open it up first to Melanie.
Thank you, Sarah. One of the things that we found, of course, I'm sure everybody else has, is throughout the pandemic, it's been extremely hard to be able to connect with our communities the way we want to be able to. And we found that using our advisory board has really helped to find ways to connect to community members that we wouldn't always normally be able to reach out to. And also, like I had said previously, on Fridays at our community center is our fun day for our youth that attend our distance learning help program. And we are able to do projects with them, cultural projects, as well as taking them out on the good days to work in the garden, teach them about the plants, teach them about the different ways that they can help them, as well as showing them how to mix the different plants together to make teas or balms or syrups. And it was fun for me to do classes with the kids and have them suggest ways that they could bring the plants together to make teas. So we were able to do that, and then they decided if it was a plus or a minus and whether they wanted to take it home to their parents. And we also have designed kits monthly that we have community members sign up for. We have an adult day and we have a youth day that our families can sign up to pick up a kit to take home projects that they can work on at home as a family or individually. And I'd like to pass this on to Helena.
Thanks, Melanie. Let's see. We really try to include youth and community in all of our programming and our efforts, especially in our staff development as well. So in our year 3 and 4 staff development, some of our former project staff engaged our youth council to provide feedback. And then they also involved community members through our community CRM workshop. And then this past year, when we actually had Seattle Indian Health Board executive review of our SAP, which was really awesome. And we are planning on getting our youth council feedback when we start this year's cohort in the coming months. And with that, I will pass it off to Amber.
Awesome. Thank you, Helena. We definitely did a lot of, discussion between the youth and the adults at our events, like Melanie, and just asking, is this something you'd like to do again? Is there anything that you'd like to see differently next time? We use the surveys that we did with the youth and adults at our talking circles to kind of see what types of activities or topics the youth wanted to cover for future events. I've received personally a lot of different text messages and Facebook messages. A lot of the resources that we send out, I always include, my contact info on that, and just, it's a small community here, so everyone knows who I am. And after being in this position for 2 to 3 years now, people are starting to get more comfortable and just reaching out to me, even if it's just concerns or ideas for different groups or different ways we can support the youth in our community. And I've been really loving that. And another very helpful tool for us has been our advisory board. It's been a little challenging during the pandemic to get our advisory board to meet, just because some people are working from home or maybe they're not working at the moment. So we moved those to quarterly. But our board has been very supportive in suggestions and ideas, and any of them that might have youth at home, kind of providing that feedback and maybe their own struggles and challenges. And we also, there's a couple other tribes that I try to meet with monthly, and we just idea share and talk about what's going well. And sometimes we try to plan activities together. That was more when we were able to meet in person, but I find that very helpful. So if you're able to, get time to meet with another grantee, I definitely suggest that. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mary.
I'm glad you mentioned that about meeting with another grantee. Early on, my first year working with this grant, I was able to meet with the Osages here in Oklahoma, and also with the Creek Nation, and they were very, very helpful to me. Being kind of new, I had worked in substance abuse for a while, but I hadn't really with suicide prevention, and it was just so. They were just so welcoming. We did a few activities together, and they really showed me a lot. So that mentoring really meant a lot. But you know, I had to reach out, and I know we have a buddy system and all that, but you know, don't be afraid to reach out and contact people, because you know, people can just really be very helpful. As far as engaging youth, yeah, in the beginning we did a SWOT analysis. It's kind of fun to do with stickies and stuff, to get a kid's opinion. A lot of times we would do the surveys. We sent them to trainings. We found some very good trainings that we were able to send a couple of groups to, and be with them through those trainings to help them with strategic action planning. And we did a training with Native Hope with Clayton Small, actually at our Sequoia High School. Talking circles are really good. Even here at Cherokee Nation, you know, it's not really a talking circle place, but once they got the gist of it, they really liked them. We were able to access youth through some of our existing programs like youth services, who already had groups in schools. Also through our community coalitions, who also already had groups going. So, you know, to be able to find groups that are already engaged, that was very helpful. And then of course our workshops, being able to do hands-on things with them, you know, according to the seasons. You know, we did baskets, we made bows, we did lacrosse sticks, we did wild Indian gathering, we cleaned corn stalks for the bow shoot. We processed turtles. We did all sorts of things. So, you know, being able to pass that knowledge on to the youth, and some of them are very, very good at this stuff. So it was just a really good time for all of us. And with that, I'll pass it to Lisa.
Thank you, Mary. We do a lot with our youth center and our schools. That's about the only places that we work with our youth. We tried getting a youth council going, but it was hard. At the youth center, we did a SWOT analysis with some of the youth there, and it was all boys, and they were probably our best group that we ever worked with, because they were so active in it. Just getting, like Mary said, having existing groups of youth, working with them, that's probably the easiest way to get involved with them. That's all for me.
Thank you, Lisa. And it really is so powerful when you engage youth in the community. It's very empowering for them. And then you feel like the work that you're doing has a little bit of ownership among the group. So that's really helpful. I think that, Sophia, do we have any questions? I don't see any questions from the team group. Oh, Marvin's writing something in here. Nope. Okay, Marvin. Then we'll go ahead and move on. I'll turn it back to Shabri.
The suspense is killing me, Marty. Alrighty. Well, through the pandemic, this has greatly impacted many of our communities in various ways. And, you know, today we're talking about strategic action planning, and definitely how we've been able to implement many of the activities and and efforts in our communities. So how has the pandemic altered or affected your strategic action planning? And how has the experience that we're all going through affected the implementation of your plan? So maybe you had a plan a year and a half ago, you revised your plan, you tried to carry it out, and there was this pandemic, and it impacted the way that you had planned to carry it out. And so there were some things that you had to do differently. Did you have to update your strategic action plan to adjust due to the pandemic? And how did you adjust, or what did you do to update your strategic action plan? And did you make any adjustments for not being able maybe to host certain things like in-person activities with youth, or meetings with staff, even those internal things for planning? So I'm interested, and I'm sure that the grantees that are on this call are interested in how you made such adjustments, and what were these types of things that you were able to do to continue to carry out programming in your community. And Melanie, can we start with you?
Sure. Thanks, Shri. When the pandemic hit and we had to change everything that we were doing, like our tribe basically shut down, so we couldn't come on to the actual reservation to be able to bring any of the medicines that we normally would do. We were able to, through the pandemic, to be able to have permission to come on campus to grab our supplies, and I put together kits and things at home that I was able to pass on to our emergency team that got them out to like our elders or whoever had asked for different types of teas or syrups or balms. We also decided to, like I said earlier, to arrange our kits to go home for the adults and for the youth. And I had a lot of people that liked our elderberry syrup, so I decided to put elderberry syrup kits together with the directions and the best way for them to be able to make it at home so that it would be successful for them. And I gave them everything but the pot to cook it in and the water. And they were able to make the syrup so that they could have it at home. And our center was shut down to just our youth activities, so we had to start doing outreach by appointment, so that everybody that came to get any of the different herbs or syrups or balms would have to get an appointment, and then they'd have to come and sign in to the front door and get their temperature checks and then social distancing and masks. But we were able to get supplies out to the community, and also we provided newsletters that gave some different tips and tricks and things to help them through the pandemic, to hopefully help them feel a little more secure with what was going on. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Helena.
Thank you, Melanie. Oh, that sounds really awesome. And then thinking about when COVID hit our community in the Seattle, King County area, all of our events went virtual, and we really prioritized social media programming, and then focusing on a lot of our protocol development, specifically our postvention protocols here at the health board. And then kind of jumping to our SAP, we updated it this past September, and we included our COVID response as its own goal in our SAP. And the objectives of our goal really focused on virtual events and our social media campaigns to really reflect, how this pandemic has really changed our Native Connections program here. And I will pass it up to Amber.
Thank you so much for that. Like the other grantees and like many of you, we did also shut down, and that had a major impact on our year 4 planned activities. Some of the events that we had planned to attend in person with the youth, they were canceled and turned to virtual. So we in turn started turning virtual once we started opening back up. We definitely took advantage of all the different social media platforms out there, you know, different ways to spread information. Our youth program, they started doing weekly mail-outs to the youth at home. So I definitely took advantage of that, and I created a bunch of different resource sheets. I started doing a monthly newsletter, you know, just any helpful tips for youth at home. So that was awesome because that was going out to about 150 youth weekly. And we also had magnets that we had created in the past that had pictures of our youth on it and different resources, and those were going out to all of our youth homes as well. And then the summer youth program, they had to turn virtual, and they had actually asked the youth a list of different programs or events, like, would you like to have these? And one of the trainings that they actually picked to have was our QPR training. So during the summer, I was able to train 34 youth and adults in QPR virtually, and that was really exciting. The youth seemed to really enjoy that, and you know, even though it was virtual, we were still able to have some interaction. And in September, for Suicide Prevention Month, we did a virtual run walk event. So the youth had a whole week to get out and walk, run, or bike 3 miles to support suicide prevention. And if they did that, they were entered into a raffle. And the raffle items we got from different tribal departments, as well as some of our community members. We had 24 youth participate in this, which was really exciting. And a lot of their parents were out there with them. And they were sending me pictures. They were posting them on Facebook and tagging me, and then also putting them on our suicide prevention page. We also hosted a Positive Healthy Talk Day on World Suicide Prevention Day. I had 5 different guest speakers that came and just discussed different things to support one's well-being. You know, the importance of sleep, the importance of community, building a foundation, just linking to resources. So we had a pretty awesome month in September, and we are now doing virtual stories. We just hired a video consultant, and we're going to be working on those from now until the end of the grant. So our goal is to have about 6 of those, and we're really excited about that. And it's just to highlight different ways that our youth have self-care, or just highlighting, you know, different talents that our youth have to share with the community. Because one thing that we've definitely noticed after our youth are in school all day virtually, they're just not interested to hop onto the computer to join another event that's hosted virtually. But with these videos, we're hoping they're, you know, 4 or 5 minutes long, and we can just post them out into the community, and then everybody can just watch them on their own time. And then a couple years ago, we had our very first Coastal Jam here, and it was really successful. We had over 500 participants. We had a date set last year that was canceled due to the pandemic, but we are setting a date to hopefully host a virtual Coastal Jam this year. So we are looking forward to that, and we're getting the youth involved. So we've been really working hard, and we've been talking to the youth in the community. I've talked to my GTA, my supervisor, and just getting the community on board to support this. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mary.
Amber, those are really, really awesome activities. You guys are all doing some really great stuff. I'd like to hear more about the virtual Coastal Jam. It sounds like a really good activity. Yeah, when the pandemic hit, basically everything got canceled. All the stuff that we had going, all the trainings that we were going to be doing, and then of course some of us got sent home. I've been working from home since last April. So it was very, I mean, we did receive some very, very good training from Tribal Tech and you guys as far as what folks were doing to make adjustments. So what we did was, we were planning on doing some big events like youth and elder camps in the communities. And so instead of doing the big events, what we decided was to do much smaller ones. Of course, everything was outside. We also decided to go according to the season. So instead of doing, these big events where there's like 10 different activities going all at once all weekend, we decided to do small groups, and then we would just work on one activity at a time according to the season, depending on what we had gathered to do it with, and then we would work on it and meet as many times as we needed to finish the projects, and that seemed to work out really well. We of course we have these things called life resource kits. Basically they're bags with information and stuff in them about from depression to mental illness to, of course, the lifelines information in it, and what to do if you suspect somebody is wanting to hurt themselves. Just all sorts of information. That book that has all the stories in it from SAMHSA, we put that in there too. And we really upped those and started delivering them to our police stations, our frontline worker, for instance, our EMSs, all of our community coalitions, and basically anybody that asked for them. Of course, everybody in our activities got them too. We also developed self-care packages for our frontline workers at behavioral health, and we did a couple of online trainings too. One of them we were able to do Lifelines training, which is a school suicide prevention training that basically trains the schools exactly what to do in case of crisis, from the administrators to every single person, including the students. And we were able to do that with, I think, about 10 school systems in a 4-county area in northeastern Oklahoma, all online. And I'm really, we knew the need was there and the readiness was there, so this was something we had planned on doing. We just ended up asking our presenters to adapt it to be all virtual. So that worked out really well. And actually, one of the schools was one of the ones that recently, like as of yesterday, they had an active shooter incident there that actually turned out to be a very good example of what to do in a crisis, because they didn't have any injuries and everything actually turned out well. So, and one of our youth champions actually has come up with another project. She wants to distribute life kits to every senior in her school, which there ends up being about 500 there in Claremore, Oklahoma. So, of course, we provided info for our community coalitions and for their Facebook pages. So, we just had to adapt with what we could do and figure out what people needed at this time, So I'm going to pass this on to Lisa.
Thank you, Mary. That was a lot. Like everyone else, we were shut down for 3 months too. During that time, no one could even get into the tribal center here, so I did a lot of Facebook, personal, and our program's Facebook page, and then our community clinic has a Facebook page, so they shared stuff too. When we did open up, we were only able to meet with 8 kids at a time, and it was usually the same ones that came all the time, and they it was more boys than girls. They liked being there. Virtual, we had no luck with doing anything virtual. We live in northern Wisconsin, so the service is not good at all. And to get them online, we'd get kicked off a lot. So we don't have anything really virtual going with the kids. And we are handing out kits now, right? We're doing beading kits and drum making kits. So that stuff's all going out to them. But other than that, we don't get to do any virtual stuff right now. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Lisa. All right, well, thanks everyone. I can tell that everyone has been very adaptable and very flexible with figuring out how to adjust their strategic action planning and their activities for implementation in their communities over the last year. And I think that gives a lot of examples and a lot of hope to a lot of folks that are on the call today. And hopefully you're able to take away some things to your planning for your strategic action plan. So, you know, I think the next part that we'll get to address before we close out today is
Shabri, I think we have a question from Erin Kashem.
Oh, great. I'm sorry about that. Oh, sure. Yeah, Erin. Okay, great. Yeah, Erin posed a question in our chat box, and I just was trying to skip right over. So let's go back and address that. And if any of our grantee panelists would like to discuss a little bit about this, that would be great. Erin was asking, how have your programs handled or addressed any virtual burnout among youth and maintaining engagement with the activities that you have?
Everybody loves Zoom meetings. Well, think about it, guys. We've come to the end of our questions. We have one last slide for you on other lessons learned, tips and tricks. So I wanted to offer this up to the panelists. For our participants on the webinar today, what other advice do you have to offer, like new grantees? For example, during SAP development, did you make mistakes that might have turned out to be okay in the end after some adjustments? Do you have any useful advice to help other grantees avoid any expensive mistakes, or do you have time or money-saving advice to help them better plan their program? And I'm going to turn that first to Melanie.
Hey, I think the first thing that comes to my mind, especially coming into this with the grant already had been started for us, and that is to reach out to your GTA. Shabri was mine when I first started, and she totally was on board with helping me with any question. And don't ever feel that there is a bad question. Every question is a good question. Don't be afraid to ask it. And if you think you made a mistake, that's okay. Pick up your heels and learn from it, grow from it, because each opportunity is a new learning experience for you. And like Amber had said, we have a small community. I'm part of that community that meets for the grant on a monthly basis, and it is the most wonderful way to be able to share ideas and make sure that you get on the monthly calls that's put out by SAMHSA, so that you can keep up with everything that's going on, and don't be afraid to ask. That's my biggest piece of advice or lessons that I learned for the grant.
Thank you, Melanie. It's really wonderful to hear all those amazing things you guys are doing. Just kind of overall, the health board staff, it really helped make our activities more intentional and effective prevention efforts. And then our GTA support and advice has been invaluable. And I can't thank Cherie enough. And I really wish we could still work with her. And then one money saving idea that I had was partnering with another local organization or a tribe and share costs of like a larger event, like a youth gala, for example. And that's kind of my tips or tricks. So I'll pass it on to Amber.
Thank you so much. We definitely noticed a lot of burnout. I would say that the burnout happened fairly quickly. We had our suicide talking circle that had transitioned into a drum group, and after we were shut down, we did turn this virtually. And in the beginning, we had quite a few participants. And then after things started opening back up, we did a social distancing drum group, which started to increase numbers again. But then we had another shutdown, and we had to cut that all together. Definitely one of the ways that we've just really been able to kind of work around that is just working with other departments that were having successes. Like I said earlier, our youth department was doing mail outs to 150 youth weekly. So just really like working with those other departments that are having those successes, because just getting that information out there sometimes is going to really help you be beneficial. So yeah, just don't be afraid to ask and reach out. I reach out to a lot of our different departments all the time. Sometimes they get responses, sometimes they don't. And I'm one of those that if I don't get a response, I'm probably going to email you again. And that's okay. Just keep reaching out because people get busier. People are working from home and they don't always see that. And like the other grantees said too, definitely reaching out to your GTA. My GTA was Chanel Ford, and she's been super helpful. She made extra time for me pretty often. So we'd have a lot of different calls. Sometimes we'd get my supervisor on board for those. Definitely asking for help. And no question's a stupid question. I've definitely felt when I first started in this grant that everything that was expected of me that I should be able to do and know how to do it, but that just isn't always the case. So just reaching out to those that might have that knowledge and, be ready to learn and, I don't know, keep also taking care of yourself because the work we do is really important and it's big work, and practice your own self-care. So that's what I have, and I'm going to pass it on to Mary.
Those were really good words, you guys. Those are really good words. Yeah, I've been thinking about lessons learned as far as virtual burnout. We really haven't done that much virtually. What we ended up doing, like I said, was we're a bunch of small group. We got people outside, the best we could. Social distancing and being outside and doing Indian stuff, that's what we love to do. So, that seemed to work out best for us. As far as a lesson learned, it was very, very helpful for us. I know you guys aren't going to be able to get together with everyone. With our grant, when we first started, we were able to get together with everybody at a meeting, and that's where we actually got to meet the people, the other grantees nearby, and that was very helpful. Don't be afraid, of course, to reach out to your GTA. Yeah, by all means, but also reach out to people that are have been doing this for at least a year or so. If they might be willing to partner, like Amber was saying. We were able to partner with Osages and the Creeks, and we did a QPR training of trainers, and we're able to train 32 staff and community members to go out and be able to do their own QPR trainings. You know, we couldn't have done that without the Creeks and the Osages. So it was really great being mentored by them. So by all means, don't be afraid to reach out. People want to help and they want to share, and if they don't, just reach out to somebody else. There's a bunch of us. I don't know how many grantees there are now, but there's a bunch of us out there now. So and by all means, partner with existing programs. If you see an idea out there, you know, reach out to that person and talk to them, because like I'm probably going to be talking to Amber about this virtual coastal jam to find out what that's all about. So I just want to encourage you to do that, and don't forget to take care of yourself. You know, don't forget to fill up your own basket, you know, because you can't hand out stuff from that basket if yours isn't full. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Mary. A lot of it, what I have to say has been said too. Collaborate with other programs and coalitions. Make sure you take time for yourself. You need to be healthy to help others too. Talk with everyone about your program. People need to know that it's okay to talk about suicide. It is no longer a taboo. And I miss our GTA. Shabri was awesome. She helped us so much. I just went into this position in October. I was the coordinator, so now I don't get to do as much with the kids and stuff. And I almost like it better being away from the administrative stuff, because I can spend time with the kids. But just enjoy your program and have fun doing it. Meet you.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate all those comments. I think what I took away from that last piece was enjoy your program and have fun doing it, and enjoy that community work and the connection with the youth. That really spoke to me right there. So thank you for sharing that. I feel like I take a piece away from each webinar, and definitely from our grantee presenters, and that really spoke to me. So to all of our grantee audience members today, that was a little bit of a sneak peek of our upcoming webinar that we're having of the SAP Success Stories Part 2 that we're holding in February. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for some more conversation on strategic action planning success stories, and featuring some more insights on working with youth specifically and engaging older youth, as well as reaching out to enlisting elders in prevention work, and some more tips and tricks and advice from our grantee panelists here that joined us today on developing strategic action plans. So definitely join us again in February, and be on the lookout for an invitation to a webinar on crisis response during the pandemic, scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern on February 9th. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a lively discussion, and we're on the last bit now for just a few questions or comments. In our chat box today, we have just 2 minutes left. So if there's anything that you'd like to say to our grantee presenters today, our panelists that joined us and were able to honor us with their time and their energy and their preparation and all of their thoughts and wisdom and experience, please enter that into the chat box. We'll be sure to share that with our grantees. Any follow-up information, we'll be sure to get out to you guys. So we'll have their emails. They'll share that. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a bit, but we'll share their emails in the chat box for you guys, and you'll be able to reach out to them specifically if you guys need. But Sarah, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Oh, thank you, Shabri. Nope, just sharing the upcoming webinars. We've got a full dance card coming up in the next few months. Hope you guys will join us again. And I don't know, do we turn it back to you, BC, to close us out?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, panelists. Very interesting information. We really appreciate it. These are the upcoming webinars in the next couple of months. I was also fortunate enough to do a podcast with our panelist Helena Darrow, and she had some good information to share about SAP and using really a little more detail about the information she shared with you here, and that link to that podcast is in the chat box. So we look forward to you joining us. Thank you very much. Everybody take care.